So obviously it's a bonnet lift kit. So the problem, as you know, or maybe you don't know, but the problem with the Spitfire bonnet is A, it's very large, B, it's very heavy, as you'd expect from being very large, and it only props open on one side. So if I show you what I mean. Squeeze down. You think I'd be good at parking this thing by now, but I never get it square. So obviously that's the bonnet. It's the bonnet and the wings all in one, so whereas most cars would just have a bonnet that opens between the wings, this one is the entire thing, which is great for access. If you're going to work on your car, you can go and sit on the tyre with your feet either side of the wishbone and do your tinkering. So that's all lovely, but of course the downside to it is it's a bloody great thing. It is heavy to lift, and because it only props up on that side, on this strut, if you were to knock that strut this way and kink it, obviously it's going to come down and it's going to Pac-Man you. Equally, if you get a strong gust of wind on the bonnet, which happens a lot, if I just push the bonnet backwards towards the door, you can see that drops out, and then it wants to come down and kill you. So let me just prop that back up again a second. So naturally, it's a bit of a problem. I have been Pac-Maned inside this twice. Once I was sat on the wheel. This was I was working outside because obviously I didn't have any space in it to do whatever I was doing. So once I was sat on the wheel and it just sort of hit me on the top of the head. It wasn't too bad, it didn't fall very far. I just went, oh, okay, push it back up. The other time I was bleeding a wheel and I was on the other side and I was kneeling down on the floor and I had my arm resting on the top of the engine. And it came down and it chomped me on top of the arm. Now luckily I'm butch, so it didn't do any damage, save for a scratch. But man, if you were a smaller person or older person, that would have probably snapped your arm. It was pretty nasty. So there's a problem there, isn't there? And because it only props on one side, obviously the bonnet is always twisted. It's always being propped on this side, so it naturally wants to lean on that side, which isn't great for the hinges or anything else. So basically, it's a crap design. But there we go. So you can get these aftermarket bonnet lift kits. And obviously the idea is being you now have two gas struts, which are going to take the weight of the bonnet, meaning when you lift it, it'll make it much easier to lift, and when you close it, you'll have to actually apply pressure to close it, which is good. Now, I've put off buying one of these because they are quite expensive. They're best part of £100, which for a couple of gas struts, it seems quite excessive. However, because they are large gas struts and they're designed to hold a lot of weight, they're quite expensive just to buy the struts on their own. They're about 20 odd, 25 quid just to buy a strut on their own. So a pair of struts, you're looking 50 odd quid. And then you need to make sure you get the right ones, make sure they're the right height, make sure they're the right compressive strength, etc. So I wanted to buy one. Now, most of the ones I've seen have a bracket that attaches to the radiator bracket to lift them up, but these ones don't, and this is the reason why I bought this one. So these ones come with these two plates, which actually sit on the cowls, the lower light struts. Save me walking around again. I'll use the power of zoom. They bolt down right there on top of that, which is a damn sight easier than trying to attach it to the side of the radiator bracket, which is here. Because obviously with the radiator brackets, you have to set the height. You have to bolt them in somewhere on the vertical, and you can get it wrong. Whereas when you're just bolting it on top of two existing bolts, you can't really get it wrong. It's already lined up, the hole's already there for you. So yes, it wasn't cheap. Like I said, it was about 90 quid, something like that. But like I say, I think it's going to be a good investment. I've been meaning to get one since I've done the car. And yeah, so this should be a reasonably simple installation. It should be just take the bolts out, bolt the new thing in, and there we go. However, in my experience, these things are very rarely that simple. So let's give it a crack. Let's see how it goes. So it all looks pretty straightforward. Attach a ball joint onto the bottom of the bracket. These two holes go over those two bolts. The gas strut then attaches to that, and then attaches somewhere up here on the arch. Here, I'm guessing. We'll find out. Okay, well that's in. It's very straightforward. And you've got two holes there, and they go in the uppermost hole. Ball joint on each side. Screw them on. That side feels much stiffer than that side, but I know the gas struts, when you get them brand new, can be very stiff anyway. So, only thing left to do, let's give it a try and see if I can collapse it without, well, let's see if it actually closes. I know these things are meant to be a one-size-fits-all thing, but my bonnet's a bit funky as well, so anyway, let's give it a go. If it goes crunch, then okay. Alright, so we're just fouling on the radiator bracket. Okay. So we're just at the moment, we're just fouling on this bracket here. I have no idea what this bracket is for. It doesn't actually do anything at the moment. No doubt it had a purpose originally. But let's get that bracket off and try again. It's just catching on this edge here. Right, mysterious radiator bracket off. If you know what that little bracket's for, by the way, let me know in the comments, because I never actually figured it out. Even in the Haynes manual, when it shows it at the front, it just shows it not really doing anything. Is a hose meant to go through it? I don't know. Let me know. Right, take two, try again. Clunk. Make sure it all clips up. One day I'll get a bigger garage. Okay. Bonnet is all clipped up. None of my paintwork is cracked. All feels nice. Okay. See what it's like to lift. Cool. Well, I think my bonnet is slightly lopsided. In fact, I know it is, because that side carries on pushing a little bit after this side. And it's never lined up very well here on the where it lines on the scuttle tray anyway. It's one of the things that annoys me the most about this car, even though I've, you know, done the best I can. That bonnet not lining up, there's a big panel gap where the edge of the bonnet there meets that left-hand door. A panel gap big enough that you can put your little finger into it sideways, so quite substantial. And it's just never lined up very well. I've even put 3 washers on top of each other to act as a spacer at the front to push it back this way, and still it doesn't line up very well. So I don't know if the front bumper, which it clips onto, has had some remedial work in the past. Maybe someone's, you know, maybe it's come off, someone's welded it back on. There is evidence of welding on there, so I'm wondering if whoever put it on hasn't, you know, measured it when they welded it, and therefore that side's a bit further away. I don't know, but there we go. It works. So that was a very quick win. That's taken me half an hour to do, and that's reading the instructions. And you know, I am a man. Normally I wouldn't bother reading the instructions. I'll just work it out. But that's gone on very, very well, I must admit. Having those little brackets down there makes life so much easier, because like I say, you can't get it wrong. You take those 2 bolts out, put the bracket on, put those 2 bolts back in again, and that is it. Normally they attach somewhere here on the radiator bracket, and whilst I don't know the other kits, you know, I'm guessing you'd have to measure whereabouts on here it sits for the arms to work. because the arms obviously start facing that way, and as the bonnet closes they need to swing all the way back over this way to point to the rear. Whereas these ones, obviously they only ever pivot from 12 o'clock back to 9 o'clock. And again, these brackets, like I say, they're all prefabbed. They're about 3mm steel, painted. Oh, you get all the nuts and bolts and everything you need with it. So that's a really worthy install. Like I say, it is 90 quid. And, you know, as you can probably tell if you watch any of my other videos, I don't like spending money. I'm just, you know, I've never had much money, so I don't like spending money. And when it comes to restoring a car or doing anything with cars, you know, as you know, we have a saying in England, if it's got tits or wheels, it's going to cost you. And, you know, unfortunately that is the truth, isn't it? Apologies to any lady viewers out there, but I'm sure you agree with me. Yeah, so, you know, sometimes you just got to spend money. But that, I think, is a worthy investment. It looks much more professional, you know, having the gas lift on it. And, like I say, from a health and safety point of view, you know, that's, it's not going to try and lunch you. Whilst working in here isn't too bad, I always make a conscious effort if I'm working in the car to obviously not lean on the arm, because if you lean on the arm, obviously it's going to lunch you. So I always make a conscious effort not to do that. But, you know, if you're broken down on the side of the road, for example, and it's a windy day, you know, you're in trouble there. You could put a pair of grips onto it. On my arm, on the arm I've just taken off, I've got a little cable tie wrapped around it there. So obviously when it's in the extended position, you can do it with one hand, but you can slip that cable tie over that knuckle and stop it from coming back. But again, it's not perfect. Like I say, a gust of winds could quite happily knock that cable tie off. I never even bothered painting that. It's almost like, in my mind, I knew it was never going to stay before I even knew these kits were available. I just never got around to painting that piece, and I don't really know why. Yeah, so there we go. Bonnet strut install kit. I will find the name of the seller online. I don't think it says on the instruction sheet anywhere. No, I'll find the name of the seller online, and I will put a link up, because, you know, it's always nice to, you know, to support other people. And yes, whilst you have to pay for the privilege, some things like that are just a good idea. The other thing I noticed, one of my other viewers mentioned, is that I'm actually missing a couple bits on my bonnet strut, which I never realised. So up here, obviously you have your cross brace, which attaches to the seams, the top of the inner arches, and then goes across the bonnet. It doesn't actually make contact with the bonnet up here, which is, you know, seems, maybe it did originally, maybe there were some rubber pads on it originally, I don't know. It's just there to strengthen it. But there should also be, looking at an exploded diagram, I always did wonder what these two holes here were for. And there is a tubular piece of metal that comes off this and goes to here and sits up inside that arch there and takes some of that flex out of it. Obviously it's there for a reason. I don't have them. I never had them. They didn't come when I bought the car. You know, the car was in bits when I ordered it. They're not there. They should be. So if you know of anywhere to pick those up for a decent price, let me know. I've had a quick look on eBay. Can't see much. There's a couple in Canada, but it's going to cost me £300 odd to get them over here for some reason. And I'm clearly not going to pay that for two tubular bits of metal. If I could really be bothered, I could probably fab them up just with some tubular steel and a bender, but, you know, it's a bit of a pig to get it right. So if you know of any of those going anywhere, or you ever see any, let me know. Got to send that relay back because my horn is no good. I'll show you what the horn does. It's incredibly annoying. I've only got one of the horns connected at the moment for that very reason. So let me just turn the old ignition on. Press the button, and I'm just going to press the button once. As you can see, very annoying. It doesn't toot. The voltage to the horn just drags on and tips off, which is surprising because these are aftermarket horns and they've actually got a little control box down there. which I've just riveted onto the radiator bracket. So you would think that that control box would eliminate the need for the relay, wouldn't you? You think that would be just a transistor in there, so when you press the button it just gives it a very, very quick volt, you know, a hit of voltage, and then cuts it off immediately. But it doesn't. They were cheap, to be fair, you know, they're not very good. I wouldn't buy them again, don't recommend. I can't remember what they're called, but you know, they're like classic car, horn, universal, blah blah blah, and they were about, I don't know, 15, 20 quid. So you can't expect much. But yeah, they don't have a relay built into them. There's nothing to cut the voltage off, so it just drags on. And with both horns on, attached, obviously it's twice as loud. So I was looking forward to getting that fixed today, but there we go. People in a warehouse can't pick, apparently. So not much you can do about that. What else we got to do in here? Not a huge amount now. The other thing I'm going to change at some point is the air filters. As you can see, I'm using the original air filters. These are meant to be a nice bright orange colour, and even just driving it for the last couple of weeks, you can see they've got very dirty. They're only a paper filter, so, you know, not ideal really. You're not going to get the best performance out of something like that. Now, originally there was meant to be like a cassette, a metal cartridge that these sat inside, which had a hose going off to the front somewhere. I've never quite looked at it because, you know, it looks crap, and it's a dog to get on and off all the time. So I'm going to get some aftermarket air filters for these ones. And again, there's a couple of choices with the aftermarket air filters. Now, on my old cars, I've had K&N air filters, you know, the reusable ones, you just clean them. And they've always worked, you know, very, very well. I like the induction noise. Obviously, you're not going to get as much with this because it's not turbo, but my old car, I had a little smart roadster. I'll put a picture up now, actually, because it was a cool little car. Look at that. Do you get those in the States? Don't know. A little two-seater convertible, 600 or 700cc 3-cylinder engine, twin spark with a turbo. Went like hell, surprisingly. Fiberglass or plastic body panels, like I say, convertible coupe. Looks a bit goofy, but man, it was such good fun to drive. That's half the reason I've ended up getting this car, because I miss my little two-seater coupe for the summer times, whizzing around with the roof off. It was just the most fun car to drive. I know it's a term that gets used a lot, overused, the term, you know, it goes round corners on rails, but man, it really did. You could put your foot to the floor and just pull into a 90-degree bend, and the car would just go around the corner. No slide, no back, and nothing, you know, didn't ever feel like it was going to fall off the road. Really rigid suspension, great little car, and I miss it, hence why I've ended up getting one of these. After all, if you're going to restore a British classic, it doesn't have to be a two-seater roadster, does it? It could be anything. It could be an Austin Healey, it could be you know, an Austin Maxi. God, I have very bad memories of being a child in an Austin Maxi. We used to go to the to see some of my mum's friends up at Newquay, and as there was too many of us, I used to go in the boot. And I remember the boot was so badly corroded you could look down and see through the holes in the boot and watch the road going by. Just me in the boot on my own as a kid, probably, you know, 6 years old. Nowadays, of course, frowned upon by the police. They pull you over and find a child in the boot, especially with holes in the boot. But as a kid, I loved it. I thought it was a great adventure, you know. So yeah, so I could have got one of those cars, but I didn't. I got one of these because, you know, it's just more fun to drive. So anyway, that's a very long-winded, gone off on a tangent there, talking about air filters to me and being in the boot of a Maxi. But I had a K&N air filter on the old car, great air filter. They're unfortunately like 90 quid each for these, for HS4 carbs. And you need two of them, obviously. I'm not paying 90 quid each, 108 quid for 2 air filters. You can get the cone-shaped ones that the Minis used to have, and again, they're like 60, 70 odd quid each as well. And other than that, you can get the chrome pancake air filters, which are much cheaper. You can get a pair for them for like 25 quid. But I've heard varying reports on them. Some say they work perfectly, other people say the foam is too rigid in them, so they actually restrict the airflow. Of course, I could always pull the foam out and put a different foam in, but I don't want to mess around with them too much. So I probably will end up getting a pair of those chrome pancake filters, because as I've said, I'm a cheapskate. And put those on. A, they look nicer. Not that I've got anything chrome in the engine bay, really. You know, whilst I'd love to have one of those show cars where everything inside is chrome, you've got a chrome valve cover and the inlet manifold's polished, and your dash pots are polished to a high shine and all that kind of stuff, all your master cylinders. You know, this was never intended to be a show car. It was just meant to look reasonably clean and tidy, and I think it does look reasonably clean and tidy as far as engine bays go, but it's not amazing. It could be much better. So, you know, I'm not worried about having all the chrome, fancy accessories or whatever, but it just happens to be they come as chrome. So I'll probably get a couple of those to stick on, just I'm going to mess around with those air filters. One thing I did find funny, in the Haynes manual, you can tell it's from the 70s, it says in order to clean your old air filters, if you don't want to buy new ones, you just soak them in a baking tray full of petrol in your workshop. You know, as you do, just a tray full of petrol, soaking filters in your workshop. What can possibly go wrong? Hence why there were so many fires back in the day. You know, yeah, like I say, having trays of petrol lying around in your workshop, frowned upon nowadays. For a good reason. Health and safety has come a long way. And while some people don't like modern health and safety, and I'm not overly bothered by it, as you can probably tell by the way I work, you know, there are some things I do agree with, like, you know, seat belts and things like that. Some safety features that I do like. So, yeah. Anyway, rather than me prattling on about this, let's move on to something else. Ooh, one thing I did forget, which I'll quickly mention, is wheels. Now, obviously I have the standard Triumph Steelies on my car. Okay, you can't see them very well because I'm in the workshop, but I'll put a picture of the car up now. So they're the standard steel, 13-inch steel wheels with the plastic centre caps on them, which, you know, they're all right, they look nice and classic, but I want something a bit cooler. I want some alloy wheels. Is that wrong to put alloy wheels on a Triumph? Specifically, the ones I like, because here's the problem with alloy wheels on this car. So this car doesn't share a stud pattern with many modern cars. Some MGs, that's pretty much it really. Triumphs, MGs, there are a few others, other people will know, but there aren't many. It has the 95.25 PCD, that is the circle diameter made by the 4 studs. And you don't get a lot of choice with alloy wheels. Now, of course, you can always get adapter plates for them. 4x100 is a much more widely used stud pattern, and you can get other adapters as well. But I don't like wheel adapters, I must admit. I'm very weary of having bolts behind the wheel, the adapters going into the hubs to worry about. So you're not just worried about your 4 wheel nuts anymore being tight, you've also got your 4 bolts holding your adapter plate on being tight. So there's that, which is stupid, I know, because if they're tight, they're tight. And also, you know, having an adapter pushes the wheels out. Now, the rear wheels, you've got a fair amount of room between the tyre and the arch looking at the moment. At the front, not so much. But I don't like the idea of pushing off the hubs too much any more than I have to. Obviously, the further you go away from the hub, the more strain you're putting on the hub. So I'd like to stick with a standard 95.25 4x for the stud pattern. And one of the ones that does fit is the MGF wheels, and I think they're called the VCC wheels. I'll put a picture of them up now. But there are some quite nice looking wheels, I think, as far as 5 spokes go. They're pretty cool. So I've got my eye on a set of those, which I'll probably buy. They're on eBay. Probably buy. They've got tyres. I'm a bit worried about the size of the tyres because the tyres on them, they've obviously come off an MG, not a Triumph. And the tyres are 205s. So 13-inch wheels are standard on the car now. These are 15-inch alloys, and I've done some asking on the forums, and 15 inches is apparently okay. You're not going to start rubbing on things or having problems with them. The only issue is the width of the tyre. Again, being a 205. Let me just see what width I've got on the tyres on these for 1 second. Okay, so I've got 155 80 13s on this at the moment. So going from a 155 up to a 205 is obviously a 50mm increase, which is, you know, reasonably substantial. 5 centimetres, that's probably that much. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but I'm a bit, you know, I'm a bit cautious. Obviously I could get new tyres put on them, but having just forked out to put brand new tyres on these wheels, and the tyres are, if I can get you in there, the tyres on these are as good as brand new. I've done less than 100 miles in this car. I've done the odometer saying, what's it saying? It's saying, oh no, I lie, I've done 111 miles. That's spooky. I reset it when I first started driving the car, took it out for its very first drive. And there you go. 111. So I've done it. So I have done over 100 miles. I've done over 100 miles in my Spitfire since I've restored it. It's alright, isn't it? So they've done less than 100 miles, and the tyres on this, whilst they're cheaper because they're 13 inch, they're still not cheap. They're still, I think they were 45 quid, 50 quid, something like that each, so that's still 200 quid worth of tyres. So buying a set of alloy wheels and then having to spend that amount again, or if not more, on a brand new set of tyres, and then putting these wheels to one side in the workshop with brand new tyres on them, I don't like that. You know, it feels like a real waste, because once I put alloys on this, I'm not going to go back to those wheels again. I could sell them, I suppose, but you're not going to get much for 13 inch Triumph wheels, even with brand new tyres. I probably won't get my money back on them, and I don't want the tyres just to sit in the warehouse just cracking with age. Nor do I want to be taking the alloys off to put those on just for the sake of putting them on. I don't know. I suppose I'll have to wrestle with my conscience on that one. I don't really know what to do with that. But either way, I want to put some alloys on because alloys just look cooler, don't they? At the end of the day, there's nothing more to it than that. It's not like I want to get any kind of performance increase from having bigger wheels on it. Not at all. They just look nicer, and I want the car to look nicer. So I probably still will get them because I'm stupid. But yeah, so keep an eye out for that one. Hopefully, fingers crossed, get some alloys coming. They are halfway up the country, so I'll have to get a friend to pick them up and bring them down next time he's down, if I do buy them. And like I say, I probably will, because I'm just, frivolous at the moment. And one more thing I've just remembered as well that I did. My memory's terrible. I have to keep looking around the car to remember what I'm doing. Is polishing the bezels on the gauges. So, as I'm sure most Triumph owners will know already, is that the gauges normally have black paint on the bezels. And a bit of acetone on a cloth takes it off, and they're chrome underneath. How much nicer do they look in chrome? Okay, there's a little bit of reflection there from the light. You can't really see. If I get you in closer. Like I say, you can hardly see them for the reflection. They look cool, don't they? I like the chrome bezels. What a waste. Why would you take chrome and then cover it over with horrible black paint? I don't know. So yeah, spent 10 minutes stripping the paint off those, and they look much nicer. I do like my chrome, I must admit. There's a thing with classic cars and chrome, isn't there? Anything chrome on a classic car just looks much, much nicer. Right, that's enough messing around and pointing out things with the car. So, it's a nice sunny day. I did say we'd take a trip down to the beach, so let's go down to the beach. We'll do a bit of driving footage on the way down, and then I'll actually do a little bit of filming walking around on the beach. So, if you're not remotely interested in seeing the coastline and countryside in the southwest, probably best to switch off now. But if you would like to see it, then stick around. I'll try and make it as entertaining as possible. Let's go.
this point we'll switch to voiceover because the wind noise in the microphone and the camera is just going to annoy the hell out of me and you. So as you can see, we're down on the beach now. It's a nice sunny day. The water's a lovely aquamarine green colour. It's pushing high tide, so there isn't a huge amount of sands to be seen. Decent surf, quite small. A few surfers out, making the most of the morning. It's about 10 AM at the moment. This is a mine shaft at the top of the cliff, which has recently opened. I say recently opened up, it's been there for a year or so, a couple of years. It's been capped off with a grate down at the bottom, but lots of mine workings around this part of the country, and they do open up from time to time. So now we're having a nice little walk along the cliff path, just at the top on the dunes. Like all cliff beachy areas, you have a nice bit of dune inland, all the sand builds up and then the grass holds it all together. Looks a bit like a golf course, but it's yeah, we've camped down here a lot when we were kids. This was the place to come and camp because you could just go anywhere. Panning around now onto the beach. This is the famous Mars of Golden Sand looking down towards Hale over to Lelant, and then in the distance there you can see St Ives just on that little outspit of land, and the Atlantic, that's looking north, and then the lighthouse looking back in the direction we've come. Stunning colour sea. Making the most of the sunshine while it's there. Having a good old trek back inland across the dunes. It's a pretty big area, goes for miles. You can get lost down here, especially at night time, but we used to love coming down here as kids, getting drunk and just going wandering around at night time, just exploring, and you can see why. Some nice modern houses here. Coming down to one of my favourite little cottages on the corner here, old school thatch cottage with a beautiful garden.
Nice day, get up.